Good evening, my name is Tony Jones, and you are tuned in to The Coalition online at coalitionradio.us and over the air on AM 790, your station for talk and business. Don't forget to interact with me throughout the show on Facebook at facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on Twitter at Coalition_Radio. P.O. Chris, another whirlwind week. Good evening.
Good evening, Tony.
I had a blast this week, I gotta tell you.
You were everywhere and anywhere. You are the tsunami.
And yet,
of Rhode Island politics.
I was busy all week. I didn't eat much, and yet I didn't manage to lose any weight.
And you are the hardest working man in Rhode Island show business. I mean, one week you're working the Democratic Party.
Which was a blast, by the way. It was indeed a party.
It was indeed a
party. For the party.
I mean, it was... The silly season has erupted in Rhode Island. There are events and cataclysms and tsunamis and catastrophes and scandal and bloodletting and we're only a week or two into it. I mean, imagine the fun, what it's going to be. I mean, fear, chaos, and loathing, lives ruined, careers destroyed. It's more than I can handle, Tony. Well, I would be remiss, if I didn't mention, and first of all, I heard this first on the Buddy Vincent A. Cianci radio show this week, that I didn't know this, but this week is the 40th anniversary of the Rhode Island Lottery.
Wow.
So I want to take a shout out to a happy birthday to the Rhode Island Lottery. 40 years of stealing from the poor and elderly, promoting addictions and ruining lives. Mr. Aubin, you must be very proud. So let me just say, happy birthday to you and to all those that lose. You promote problem gambling, and you ruin families too. Happy birthday!
I'm picturing you in a Marilyn Monroe dress.
Ooh,
cool. The wind blowing up.
Yeah.
Well, it's last week we touched on the gambling and what I call the big lie, and so I don't even want to call this the silly season anymore.
Which, by the way, quickly speaking of last week, I've been told that I'm a bit of a loose cannon, and
you.
However, having the good Reverend here put me in my place a little bit, because when we're talking about Monaco, so bad I wanted to say Monaco on meth. And I didn't, because the good Reverend was sitting in that very seat, and I didn't think it was appropriate.
So we'll just refrain from that and refer
We won't call it Monaco on meth on this program.
I call it Monaco meets Mineral Spring. Well, Diana Kelch is out in force. The second edition...
Did she write that song for you?
No, you can tell. The second edition of The Big Lie has begun. By the way, we don't call it the Superman building anymore. In an effort at rebranding, in which significant dollars were spent, I'm sure, we now call it 111 Westminster. Ooh, with a really kind of hip, retro, sort of artsy logo.
There's a logo?
There's a logo, and there's clearly a PR campaign.
It's the Monopoly man.
I'm wondering how much money someone was paid to come up with a logo for a building that's currently vacant.
Well, there's more, because remember, in Rhode Island, there's always parting gifts, and,
of course,
and everybody goes home a loser. The FU senator himself, Josh Miller, the liberal lion of the Senate, if you will, the progressive hero, is sponsoring a bill to give $39 million to people who desperately need it: the poor, the afflicted, the property managers of Rhode Island.
Right.
These are people who successfully raised $75 million in a private offering just last year for another building. But here they come, desperate, hat in hand, so that we can create yuppie, soon-to-be-abandoned housing in an archaic building in downtown Rhode Island. So, I call it Twin River 101. Twin River really changed the direction on how projects like this are marketed. We no longer market this as a housing development. We call it a jobs bill. Much attention is paid right up front to just how much money is going to be spent locally and how many jobs it's going to create.
Short-term jobs.
Right.
We're talking about construction jobs.
Well, she was promoting, a few 500 jobs. I say, why stop at that? If you're going to engage in baseless rhetoric, why not say 1,000 jobs? She was
1 million jobs.
1 million jobs. Everyone, we're going to have to reinforce child labor laws in this state, because there are going to be so many kids employed in the, I'm sorry, not the Superman building.
111 Westminster.
Thank you. And what's astonishing to me, too, is that progressive Democrats in this state continue to act like Republicans. They claim, of course, as you saw my tweet earlier this week, let me get this straight. The progressive Democrats call the regular Democrats Republicans, except when they want to get something passed, they act like Republicans, except you're supposed to vote all the time for the Democrats, if I got that straight. So here you have Josh Miller on one hand promoting a $39 million boondoggle to rehabilitate by what all would agree is a derelict of a building. You have Senator Mary Ellen Goodwin engaging in her own sort of corporate cronyism. These are all the lions of the Senate, and yet where are the progressive Democrats? Where is the outrage? People have got investment fatigue in the state. And I use the term
as we should have investment fatigue. I mean, I actually like the Superman building, or whatever fancy name it's going by now, but I don't see why taxpayers should have to foot the bill for private investors.
They shouldn't.
No. If it's worth converting this into apartments, it should be worth doing it on private money.
Yeah, the dreaded private sector.
Yeah.
We continue
Since when are real estate developers broke?
They are
well,
after
if they live in Rhode Island.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that, if that's the case, then that tells them something, or should tell them something.
Right, that the investment is not worth pursuing, a la 38 Studios,
Right.
a la Alpha Beta, a la just about every private investment that we finance in the state has turned into an abysmal failure, and yet you talk about socializing risk and privatizing gain.
Right.
Yet at the same time, I guess the dichotomy here.
And we also talk about, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Right. So, and where's the money going to come from? Just say no. No more. No mas. The notion that at this point in time, as we debate whether or not our inability to pay for 38 Studios could, whether or not it truly could put us into a death spiral in terms of our bond rating, while at the same time, how are we going to raise this money? Are we going to continue to bond bad investments? Are we going to borrow money to essentially go to the casino? I mean, we may as well just take that money and go down to Monaco and Mineral Spring.
Why don't we just put a casino in 111 Westminster?
Ooh. Joe Paolino, boy wonder, are you here? Do you hear that?
I probably shouldn't give him any ideas.
No, because that'll be next.
We'll show up at the city council meeting next week.
Right, and this will be one of those bills that's fast-tracked. If you notice, bills like this never have to go to the ubiquitous study, do they? We don't need to fixate on them. We don't want to get into the heavy details, do we? No, this will be fast-tracked through the Senate, and Josh Miller will use whatever chips he's getting, and who knows, and here's the thing, it's technically all legal. Is it immoral? Yes. Is it crony capitalism? Yes. Are the Republicans and Democrats equally guilty of it? Yes. Are the alleged progressives, who, by the way, have still yet to show a pulse on 38 Studios, even though they were in charge for a while and claimed to as part of the reorganization of the House post-Gordon Fox departure, where at that time they were claiming they were going to push forth the bully pulpit on 38 Studios? Have they shown a pulse since then? And by the way, where is Karen Macbeth? While we're at it.
Crickets?
Hopefully at least 100 yards away from you for legal reasons.
Well, I think a lot of the time people run as progressives or whatnot based on social issues and don't necessarily carry that through in things like finances. We don't really have anybody counting the beans and noticing that we're running out of beans.
Right. Well, so what you're saying is they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk.
Yeah.
So if there's an opportunity for their political movement to prosper, whether it be in the financial sense or whatever type of clout they perceive they can get by pushing this forward.
Yeah, or it benefits someone behind the scenes, or they have some sort of delusion that this is somehow going to pay off for us where all the other investments haven't.
Right.
Presumably there are states that invest in joint public-private ventures that work out well.
They're just not here.
Yeah, they're just not here.
All right.
And, a privately owned building should be privately financed.
Exactly.
Unless the state is going to get something significant in return, and I haven't seen anything that seems like that's going to happen.
No. And by the way, on that note, it has been 60 days since Karen Macbeth was elevated to the head of the Joint Parish Relations Committee in charge of the understudy of civil affairs. We have yet to see a subpoena. I guess after the chips fell last Friday, I don't think we're going to see a subpoena, nor are we seeing anything other than a rehashing of the same paperwork that was pushed ad nauseum last year. So with that respect, I guess we have to bring to an end our little solemn gathering every week in our discussion of Karen Macbeth. That would appear to be DOA. So I'm going to start a new feature this week. We're going to call it the Newport Casino Fun Fact of the Week. Last week, Despite the protests of a significant portion of the Newport population, the Newport City Council decided that yes, just 2 years after it lost, we are going to expend considerable resources, time, and energy, and again discussing whether or not we should have a casino, a la Monaco on the Mineral Spring. I can't say how disappointed I am. We are going to, after the good Reverend was here last week, we are going to support those folks opposed to casino gambling on this show as in any way that we can. So we're going to have a little fun fact of the week.
And what is this week's fun fact?
This week's fun fact, via the University of Chicago National Opinion Research Center. Governments love to tout the tax revenue from gambling. We all hear it in this state. Anything that can be sold at a profit could bring in tax dollars. It must be good, right? But they fail to account for the broader loss in economic productivity. According to the University of Chicago, a fine institution, pathological and problem gamblers in the United States cost society about $5 billion a year in productivity losses, social service, and creditor losses.
Why, that sounds very expensive.
Why it is. Ruined families, careers destroyed. If we could just restrict problem gambling to the House and the Senate, I'd be happy. Then I'd be in favor of it. But unfortunately, we fail to measure, in a state where you can't build a koi pond in your backyard without getting the navel-gazing Department of Environmental Management up your wazoo
and
checking it out, we continue to inflict these incredible economic atrocities on this state with no discussion whatsoever of the social, the financial, the economic after effect.
Well, to be honest, in a way, this is basically putting lipstick on a pig. We already have video slots there. Those are the most addictive ones.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually like to see a proposal on the table to remove the video slots.
We, as our guest in the next segment pointed out to us in conversation, we probably have reached the point of no return where that would push us into a financial cataclysm.
Right.
So, hey, you're right. It sounds good to me. Let's do it. I guess we're going to find out what the machinations of the next step are going to be. This is going to go to the State House, where I'm sure the moral lights at the State House will say, no, we should really step back from casino gambling expansion. Yeah, okay. So we're going to continue to cover that, Tony. We're going to be, do you think we should invite Joe Paolino in? Do you think
he'll show up? Maybe we could bring some scratch tickets.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
So I'm looking forward to our next segment in the show. We've got Ray Rickman here. Tony, any other...
I went to Newport a few weeks ago to see some High-Lie.
Yeah.
How come there wasn't any?
In the words of the immortal Karen Macbeth, they promised, they lied.
And we have to take a quick break. You are tuned in to The Coalition, online at coalitionradio.us and over the air on AM 790, your station for talk and business. Manchester 65 is New England's newest live music and events venue. If you're not completely enjoying your current live music experience, there is another option. Manchester 65 is large enough to support touring acts, yet small enough for that local feel. For upcoming events, go to manchester65.com. Make it your place. manchester65.com.
ProvidenceNightOut.com is a one-stop destination website where you'll discover a comprehensive guide of everything that the Providence area has to offer. Nightlife, entertainment, dining and dancing, community and family events, and so much more. Download the free app called My Night Out. It's ProvidenceNightOut.com.
Mike's Professional Tree Service offers top-of-the-line tree removal, trimming, stump grinding, stump removal, and so much more. Mike's Professional Tree Service will do everything to safeguard your home and property and is fully licensed and insured. Call them today at 401-823-7485 for a free estimate on tree service, tree removal, trimming, and tree care. That's 401-823-7585. Mike's Professional Tree Service are the tree experts serving all of Rhode Island. Online at mikesprotree.com. That's mikesprotree.com. Midday Records is a label that is comprised of local artists and exists for the sole purpose of helping other local artists find new opportunities and to help build a more thriving New England music scene. Midday Records hosts the area's fastest-growing music-related networking event, the Midday Social, books Midday Records presents shows throughout New England, releases compilations featuring local music, promotes bands through the Midday blog, are the co-founders of Music for Pause, and has recently started an artist